Hey, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Um, I'm going to try and read the screen. Hey, Eric. Sorry. Hey, it's Gramps. I've got Eric and Ronnie decided to stick on for today, and we are going to talk and continue to talk about all lessons learned. I think I sent you 34, 357. The 357 felt like it should have been memorable. And I still have 134 more days until I'm actually a professional walker. They say that you have to do 10 years or 10,000 hours. I'm over 10,000 hours, but I can't prove that. And technology is kind of a piece of crap. But at 10 years, I can tell you I'll be a professional. And anyways, hey, Eric, thank you for joining. I don't know how many of these you watched. They usually not really a dumpster fire, but they're more, kind of humorous quips and things that I think Ronnie's getting them out of them. You and I met each other through a similar mechanism as Ronnie and I met, which was through VeeCon. My wife would probably like to get a hold of you. The impetus was you had partaken in the beginning of the first V Friends and had an opportunity to go, and then somehow wiped out the back of your Achilles, if that's the right way. Is that correct?
It was my knee. It was
your knee.
My knee, actually. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure how mobile I would be. So I figured it seemed like a very mobile event. Like you had to walk around a lot. So I just figured I would skip that one, and worked out for the better, it seems.
Yeah, it seems like it worked out really well. No, I'm super grateful. I would say this on a stack of Bibles. It changed my life. And for those that have watched this, I'm actually taking a different route. So if it feels like I'm lost, it's not. I'm going a completely different Starbucks. But we met through VeeCon. My gratitude was there for the ticket and partaking. And then I was thinking, as I was, doing my loose prep for the show, I was thinking of, we're now connected on whatnot. Sorry, I want to add vowels and consonants, but we're on whatnot and some of these other programs. And I actually watched you with Patrick and Josh, windowtinter.eth, do a box break during VeeCon, if I remember right, where you were doing it live and we had some sort of a WebEx kind of a camera going, and you had the numbers, and it was 2022 and you were doing it like an original box break. Do you remember that?
I do. We were talking about the Series 1 box break, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it took me a minute because I'm like running through my head. But yeah, the Series 1 box break, I definitely remember that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. You're right.
You're like the OG. So I got to watch you do it first, and it's kind of become this thing that people want to do. And I've partaken in a few, buying slabs and things like that. I guess while we're on the topic, how are you seeing things? Are you guys looking at strategizing on more whatnots and things of that nature? Or how are you engaged currently? We haven't caught up in a while.
Yeah, I mean, we did that one first whatnot, and it was a really good time. It went really well, and we've just been kind of busy, but still planning our next one. We're gonna continue to do them, kind of see where it goes. It's completely exploratory, and the funny thing is like, I'm in the whatnots, and we wanted to like pursue like really like tripling down on the V Friends community for a lot of reasons, but one of them was, like to understand what Gary's doing better, even if it's not necessarily something we're going to do exactly. But we kind of jumped into it, and then it was funny because in one of his videos, it was like a tea with Gary Vee, and somebody asks him, and basically he's like, oh, in your business, like in a SaaS business or like whatever, like whatnot's not needed at all. Like you don't need to do that. Like that would only be if you were trying to sell merch, or like, maybe like if you were very creative, then you could do it. So I was like, all right, I have to be very creative because we're going to do this. So I don't care. We'll figure it out. But so that's kind of where we're at. It's one of those things where there's not some grand plan, but it's just like be there, get good at it, build a community, like learn more and see where it goes.
I feel the same way, and I've not done my own sale. I've partaked. I've I think that's the correct use of the verb. I've bid on things. I've acquired some merch, some things like that. It's really simple to use, and I see the same direction. And what I do that puts food on the table, it really doesn't do anything for me either. I think long term, I'm trying to figure out, as you is the direction. This kind of leads into my next question for you, but is the direction that we are growing to? I'm the brand. You're the brand. Do you want Tint Wiz to be the brand? I mean, is there a direction in that regards? I mean, is that the ultimate direction where we're going, where we're going to have all these sort of quote unquote micro brands?
I would imagine so, right? There's the brands, then like the company brands, there's the personal brands, and then there's like the mascots and maybe like AI influencers that'll be like extensions of both potentially. Because a personal brand can have a mascot as well, or like a cartoon or whatever, and it could also have an AI influencer, right? Like or AI version of themselves and so on. So that can exist. So yeah, and kind of going back to like Whatnot and the personal shopping or the live shopping, I've used it on TikTok, I've used it on Fanatics, but Whatnot is the best experience. Like I enjoy it the best. It's so frictionless. It's so fun and engaging. And I find myself thinking about it sometimes, like how it'll be like late in the evening, and some of VeeFriends' lives would be like kind of late in the evening at times, and like how there's such a retail therapy kind of like it's the end of the day. You could sit there, watch a show and swipe, and basically like you're not only buying things, but like there's a gambling aspect to it too when you're doing something like a break and like a rip and sign. So now you don't know what you're going to get, and it's going to get signed, or like it's an auction, or like it's a raffle, or like the giveaways even, which cost nothing to join. Like there's a little bit of a gambling, maybe a lot of bit of a gambling built
Maybe a lot.
into that mechanism, which makes me personally really enjoy it. And then because when we talk about live shopping and gambling, we're talking about such a broad thing. It just seems like it doesn't matter if you're into trading cards. It doesn't matter what you're into or not into. You want to be there for the broad aspect of it. It's like, if somebody was into domain names related to sports cards back in 1994, you might want to be there because it's domain names, not because of the sports cards.
Yep.
So like I am into the VeeFriends. I'll cross over into the sports cards as I did as a kid, but I'm really there for the community and the learning and that whole thing.
And I find the same thing. My question, sorry, real quick, Ronnie, my statement would be, I've seen that application and some of the other applications replace the television for me. So if you were to go look at my television usage, it's dropped off the cliff. My wife has to beg me to come watch some sort of action movie or something that's, science fiction that she would never watch just to spend time with me. Anyways, go ahead, Ronnie. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, you're good. I just kind of wanted to tie the bow of like the reason why I feel like it's a good for me to fit this little triangle here, because like you said, if you going the first VeeCon, the second one was both Erik and I first, and so it was cool to kind of see. I could see the rise of Tint Wiz having been within the window film industry. And I guess the question to you is, yes, aside from Gary Vee, what other speakers all of a sudden kind of helped you find the light? Because I can see your want to kind of find all these things. And like you said, your creativity kind of exploded. What was some of the people or the messages that you found at that first VeeCon that just kind of led to this? Because I know I have mine that kind of was like, man, this is the fire or the torch that I needed to kind of go down this tunnel because I might have been scared before. What were kind of those things that you took away from that VeeCon?
So, the way my memory kind of works is sometimes I absorb experiences, but I don't remember exact parts of the experience. So like VeeCon 2, which was our first one, it would take me a few minutes, I think, to go through the speakers to kind of pick one out other than, okay, the first one that stands out, but I want to transition to VeeCon 3 because the speaker really stood out for me there. But VeeCon 2, I would say, she's like a lifelong actress, and she has a home product that she sat up there with a gentleman. She's blonde. We know her from movies. She's very fun. She has a talk show.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, and I'm completely drawing a blank as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get back to that, but she's
great human.
Say it again.
No. I said she was a great human.
No, but okay, going to VeeCon 3, the first speaker that I listened to, which was, I don't remember his name, but the title of his talk was, I don't remember the title exactly, but it was, he was the restaurateur that went from being in the top 100 restaurants in the country to the #1 restaurant in the country. And what he talked about was being I think it was unreasonable expectations. I forgot the other word, but it was experience. And he was, he really went into specific examples of how you could take a unique scenario. You can do something for that unique scenario. It does not need to be scalable. Do that over and over, have the impact, and then you can look at those, and you don't need to systematize them, but you can find patterns so you can build some sort of scale to it. And what really I appreciated about his story, I mean, he was just an amazing speaker. It was an amazing story, but it helps, I think for me, bringing back to your question, it helped remind me of, when you're starting off, it's easy to do those one-off things. As you scale, you tend to try to think of things at scale as well. And it helped put it in sometimes, like you said, a ribbon around it to where you go, I know this, but the way he worded it reminded me hey, there's always a big place for that in every business. So it's about hitting everybody, but it's also about those one-off experiences, and it will be forever. And no size should that change, because a lot of times that's the magic. And somebody I've been listening to recently is Rory Sutherland, and I absolutely love the guy. And what he points out as well, kind of in line with that, is you can't make a plane 10 times faster these days, like you could maybe in the past, or a train 10 times faster, because 10 times would just be too fast, right. But you can change the experience. So if you're looking to improve something 10 times or whatever it is, you can look towards that experience. There's room for that. And that's often, I think, not where people look in businesses, but that's where the magic happens.
No, it makes sense. I think it was 2 Madison Square or something. It was a Madison restaurant in New York. And he was the very first speaker. And I think it was making the unique experience for every single customer, making it, like you said, just that it's a memorable essence. You have a core memory. And so if you can do that for every customer, that's where you can make sure that they're going to come back or share that story, which I think is unique to everyone to kind of, if you want to, it's being of service to someone in some way so that they're like, wow, that was such a great experience. And that's definitely something that I've taken from and definitely remember. For me, it was Inky Johnson, just overcoming anything, and just his messages now I find. So, but thank you.
11 Madison Park, EMP.
Yes. I had the Madison.
I just remember, I listened to the whole book. He's got a bunch of different stories in there. I mean, he pulls obviously the good stuff out and he does it during the presentation, but it was good to go through it. And it was going to bring me back to the question that started it all. And I think you've answered some of it, but it takes a lot of us a long time to get to a point, and I'm not going to get emotional, but I'll probably get emotional, but it's a long time to get to a point where, you're just grateful as fuck. That's what they're going to say, or Gary would say, just to get up in the morning and just to be a part of the system that we are. And I see you treating every day in a gratitude driven mentality. I don't hear I don't think even when we trash talk that you ever had a negative comment to make about any situation where it's could ever be taken negative. What drove you to be gratitude driven? Was it listening to guys and just absorbing? Was there a personal experience that you went through that changed that for you? What drove that, Erik?
I think the core of it, just goes back to it being ingrained in my head, how we're going to die. And you know, I think maybe losing my dad kind of put that more in my face, because I think like growing up, you think 100 years old is like forever. And
Yep.
then, you know, like if people live very old, you just assume you're just going to live very old. But like when people don't live very old, like if you die in your 60s or younger, I mean, a lot of people die, of course, all ages. But like, you know, you pass in your 60s, let's say, or you see somebody pass in your 60s, you know, puts a reality check on the time. And like, you know, I'm in my 40s, my early 40s. And what I'm getting at is like, you know, it deeply sunk in that like the time is limited, and my expectation of life isn't just like, it isn't that I'm just going to like, it isn't just the good experiences, because like it's clear that like life is an experience as a whole, and all parts of that experience are valuable. So like if something bad's coming your way, like not saying you're just going to sit there like in this tone we are now, but ultimately like at its core you can know that like at some level that we can't maybe understand, that was an important part of the life experience that we entailed. It turned us in a direction, it forced a growth, it did something as horrible as it could have been or as great as it could have been. So like I just appreciate that I'm still here. And it's hard to, you know, like of course things can get away from you and you can get kind of super pissed about something small, but like it's very easy to quickly get back, I think, and go like, hey, I'm still glad to be here, because like, you know, you could not be here. And when you're not here, I don't know if it's better or worse, but you know, so, you know, it kind of revolves around just being happy that we're alive. And then from there, I think like, you know, I've had some DMT experiences. I meditate through cannabis and other, you know, cannabis. I mean, and I work with cannabis. I wasn't going to say I do other things. I don't actually do anything else. I don't drink or anything else. But point being, to me, for me personally, those things have helped also give me a different perspective and help like slow life down and help me think a little deeper into things than maybe I was in my like younger years. So that's kind of that, you know.
No, I appreciate that, and I don't boil it down to it's usually loss, but a lot of times it is loss that helps. I lost a grandson at 386 days. I tried to make sense of it for a long time. I was in the midst of this walking. We've got 10 grandchildren total, 9 still with us. And I tried to change my life, as you've described, to be more just grateful for every second. And, you know, it just, there's a certain way. I don't see things anymore where like I can look up and I can see the moat or I can see the block. Like I like live in this reality that if I want something, I look up, I see it, and I'm going to go do it. And I rely on my wife to say, well, yeah, but we don't have a plane ticket to get there, you know? So that was my attempt to bring humor in because she's going to listen to this later. But no, I appreciate that. I think seeing life through a different perspective and realizing there is an end, and you know, there's some famous quotes out there, but it helps you to sort of my thesis, because everything for me is math. Like I love math, and everything boils down to math. And in the math world, the equation is nothing matters. Like literally, you could be gone tomorrow. The world just continues on. You were just a chuck in the key. And at the exact same time, if that's real, then my scale says every single thing that we do matters. So everybody I see, I smile at. Everybody, you know, that I've got some sort of an interaction with, I want to be that freaking butterfly that just gave a little bit of something to help them remember why we're here. So, either way.
I think like, you know, to your point as well, it's like, and something that Gary points out often is like, and I actually have it right here. Coincidentally enough, I happen to have one sticker from V Friends, and it's, I have a bunch, but I stuck this one coincidentally. It's "You're gonna die, fly." So like, you know, Gary talks about like, don't, you know, like speaking to older people, and he's spoken about this for like a decade plus, like, and about regret, like when your life is over, like you don't want to like leave in regret and so on. And you know, like I think like you know, I picture those like potential last moments, right? Like you never know when they're going to be, but you picture like that, like last moments potentially, because basically everybody you know is either going to leave you or you're going to leave them through death.
Right.
That's how it's going to work, right? Like, so you're either going to be saying goodbye to them one way or another if you're lucky, but somebody's leaving. So I think about that moment and I go, you know, and I know for sure I will not be sad that I maybe never owned a Bentley or I never like raced a Lamborghini. Like I'm 100% sure I will not regret that. I'm a huge car person. I love cars. I hope one day to have those cars because I love them. But I will not regret not having them. I won't give a shit because I've had
Right.
other material possessions that I thought were valuable when I got them and were totally worthless at other times of my life. I couldn't give a less of a shit. But
Yep.
what I will think about is potentially like like if you've mistreated people, if you haven't said things you've wanted to say, if you haven't made the most use of your time with those people, you're going to just wish that give me 10 more minutes with my wife, give me 10 more minutes so I can say some things to my son or to somebody else or to my mom or whoever. Like you're going to want that time to try to rectify what you feel like you really missed out on, or you didn't treat somebody right, or you didn't tell them all the things you really wanted to tell them, or you weren't present with them and all those things. And like, again, I'm looking at my phone all the time. I'm working. It's not I'm Mr. President. But what I'm saying is like that sort of stuff is like the North Star ultimately of like, you know, what I think keeps me appreciative for life and makes me not ultimately like something that really gets to me that people do in general, like is like not like something I try not like, I don't think I do is like, I don't want to create problems. I don't want to create a
Right.
problem for you. I don't want to create a problem for you. I don't want to create a problem for anybody. Like I want to solve problems, not create problems. And you see sometimes people like, and I don't think they mean much by it, but like the way they go about life, they kind of do things for fun. They post things at people or like they just kind of stir things up or whatever. And it's like, what
Yep.
are you doing? You know? And like, I just don't want to ever be that, you know?
I was going to ask, at least for me, and it's funny because I was so young to kind of find the grateful going to war and coming back and just being thankful for every day, like saying goodbye to my parents and going on that plane
And imagine.
was something that you all of a sudden when you come back and you're just thankful for everything. And as I asked this, how much it took me a long time to finally put that in a correct direction. And for me, it was when I became a father. And so I'm curious to know, as I choke through my own emotional point, how did that help your direction as far as wanting to do something as far as a legacy or just putting yourself on a path to be an example?
I mean, there's definitely something like after having Leonardo, I couldn't have pictured it before. It's not some one of those things like I could not have envisioned or whatever, but like I've heard it. You know, they say once you have a kid, everything becomes about the kid and so on. But like I've almost heard it in like a way that like not like is spiteful, but like is this slight undertone of like, well, this thing takes you over and you have no control. But the reality is like after having him, the feeling is like that's what I want. I want to make sure he's well taken care of. I want to make sure that his life is getting off to a good start and he's going to have the best projectile path it can possibly have. And ultimately, like, you know, it does shift the thought process from like my life to his life. It's just like it just like literally passes it over to like I don't think about, you know, it's like him. You want him to do better and like him to go further and like what are we gonna get for him? So like, yeah, that's a fatherhood definitely just flips that switch, I guess, internally.
Yep.
For me, it was a long time ago, 1991. But yes, I do remember the instant that it was like, okay, I can't do any of the other things before. And I think there were a lot of people that, as you said, Eric, they sell it as like it's this big shackle of some sort. And I was going to say, in my mind, I came up with golden anchor. Like it's this thing that, yes, it does give you roots. It does hold you still. It does keep you from being adrift in the seas. It's got tremendous amounts of value. I mean, I won't get emotional, but I'd give freaking one of my lungs to save one of my kids. Like it's the purpose, right? And I get that. And I think you were a very generous person before that, which is why I kind of brought it out. Was there something else that helped with that? And then I think we went that direction. I take notes and I write it on my hand. So the other thing I was going to ask you, is you've now participated, maybe watched one or two. I look at you as, I hate to say platinum or gold standard, but your podcasts were repeatable. They were funny, which is required. Most people aren't funny, even though they think they are. Yours were, and you did them for quite a bit. You've helped, and I think either partly produce or are involved with the Tint guy. I was going to say the Tint brothers, but I'm not sure that that's not somebody else's. But Josh and the guys in Vegas. Is there lessons that, as Ronnie and I are doing this, and we've got a couple of different versions we're doing, and we're always trying to bring the best. And as I said, I write some notes down here. But is there any lessons that you've kind of learned from either ad hoc or well prepped podcasts that have hey, I remain curious because I just never would have been able to picture that? Is there any of those kind of epiphanies that you've come up with, or things that we should do to get better? I think it's a loaded question, but pull it apart.
I definitely the podcast, we've done a few recently, and there was kind of some breaks and so on. So it's given me some time to reflect, something that I've been thinking about. So it's a perfectly timed question, frankly. Some of the things that I've kind of reflected on was some of the successes, and then some of the things that maybe I didn't really love about the podcast. And like some of the big successes that I think were really important were just starting. So when I just started, like I was outdoors on a Starbucks Wi-Fi, and I just literally committed to doing it every week at a certain time. So like just starting and making that commitment, because for me, that public commitment made it that I was going to follow through with it. And that's what I needed, because I don't think I would have did it under any real circumstances. So like public commitment and following through with it, the consistency every week at the same time was by far like a big factor to like it taking off. And then for me, like what I did was we had a great response. We used the live aspect of it as like a communal place. So like people would join because it was at the same time. They would chat amongst themselves. They would listen. So like the live aspect was really valuable because it felt like a real community. And then what I did was I kind of just sped up how many I was doing. And at one point was doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because it got me more practice. It got me more guests in, which like I wanted to meet people faster. I got better at it, right? Because I was doing more of them. And right. It really like sped up the process to people like getting to know me, because it's not like I'm starting a show now and people are like, there's Erik. It's like stranger, random. But if you see stranger random 3 times in a week, maybe it's less stranger random. Like that's the reality, is like people aren't remembering who you are or knowing what time you're actually on, or like you're just somebody that they may not even see. It's like getting repetitive. So that repetition, going live, like I said, helped me not have to edit them. I did it the way I wanted to do it. I didn't prep. I never set up questions for people. I just felt like, hey, we're going to go in there. I'm going to start this a couple minutes right before, so I don't give them too much time to get nervous. And then I'm going to try to flow the conversation so that I get the best out of them, hopefully, and they feel comfortable. Because, like an example of that, like, is not just going, so like sometimes people go, so what's new? And you're like, that's too broad right. for somebody to answer. Like, I'm on a live podcast, so what's new? You're going to freeze me up, and I'm going to be uncomfortable for now. I'm going to go like, what do you mean? It's going to be a horrible start. So like, have a couple questions, like know about the person, and flow through it. And then kind of flipping to like what I think I did wrong was two main things. One, I fell off on consistency, which is what it is, but I fell off on consistency. I didn't think it was as important as it really truly is. I thought if you're good enough, you can be inconsistent, because you can always find examples of inconsistency that works, but those are the outliers. So be consistent. The other one was, I loved making these long form videos, 1.5 to 3 hours. What I didn't do was clip them up. And like, truly, like, it's something I think Gary said, and something that like you can apply to everything, which is, most people spend, they'll spend 100% or 99% of the time on creating the content and 1% on distribution. And it needs to be more like, I mean, now this isn't him, but like in my opinion, more like 10% creating the content, 20% creating the content, 80% on distribution. Distribution's everything. The content could be poop. It has to be seen, like literally, but you have to get it out there or else nobody sees it. So like distribution's everything. And that could mean going into Facebook groups and posting your clip. And it could mean posting it on Pinterest. And it could mean writing a blog about it and reposting a clip that you re-edited on Instagram, and like getting people to see these clips. Because the reality is when there's an hour and a half podcast and you don't know what the hell it is, and you clip in and it's like, hey, what's up? Hey. And it's like, there's a few minutes to get rolling. You cannot expect new listeners to listen to that. That is not reality.
No, 100%. I was going to say, I've been experiencing some of that. I've been listening to people talk about those aspects of it. I can tell you that the way I would describe it is when I've had the most success, I've been, and I think Ronnie's been a part of it, we've been guerrilla marketers, like, and using your term, getting into different places, making sure certain people see certain things. And, I had a great guest on a different podcast that I did, and the guy that I did it with and put it behind a Patreon. I couldn't tell you how many people have seen this podcast. And it's like, it's some of the best stuff I've ever done. Like, I want to share it with my parents and other things. And it's like, I'm waiting for it to, whatever this time period runs out, and then we can get it to them. But I hear you. Consistency. I struggle with, when I try and analyze it back to math, the least common denominator for me in the consistency market is all of that schedule the next guy, post-production, that sort of side of it. Ronnie has been like literally a saint and has taken all of the, like, he has the cool, I'm trying to think of the
I'm
one
well
that I'm not
behind.
on. Yeah,
I'm not up to my standard, so
he anyways, but he's doing stuff
to work on.
Yeah, he's doing stuff I don't do. I'm doing the guerrilla stuff. Hey, getting the link out there, getting people to try and watch it from time to time. I hear what you're saying, but for me, really, and I don't put this on him at all, for me, it's the scheduling. It's the, how do I find, and they've weaponized Calendly now. I don't know if you know this, so you can't just click on anybody's calendar invite. How do you get past and find a way to solve that side of it? You have any tips there?
I mean, I had, like, when I was doing them often, I mean, I had a calendar, and like I was months in advance on scheduling people for lives. They're lives, they're not in person, so it's not a big deal. I always had a couple people that were like my backups, right? So like people that I know I could hit up on an hour's notice or like a day's notice. So in case a guest falls, I'm going to grab them. They're like people that you've probably seen on the show the most. Like, that's how that works. And just doing it, like just saying, oh, this is the calendar and we're going to get it done, rain or shine. I'm sick. I'm this, I'm that. There's no excuses. And like, that might not fit with a lifestyle. So like I've like when I was moving over the last couple of years, I moved from a house to an apartment to another house and had a kid. So like being on that schedule wasn't going to be for me. And like, that's what it is. So like, it is what it is. Like a year off or whatever isn't going to end the podcasting career. But the other part of that I think just is like really, really important, because it helps balance out that maybe inconsistency, is like, look at, like, I wanted people to listen to my podcast. So I'd be like, my whole podcast, how many views did it get? Like, that was the big thing. And how long did you listen to the podcast? That was the big thing. But then like what I kind of have been embracing is like, if I take a clip from that podcast, if I take a 1-minute clip and it's viewed by 10,000 people and it's viewed 3 times by 10,000 people, so that's 30,000 minutes of the clip. So you divide that, that's, I don't know, 500 hours, 5,000 hours, maybe 500 hours, whatever it is. Point being, that's just as valuable as somebody listening to the podcast. So if I can take a clip and it's a great clip, I can take 5 clips and I can put them in a blog post and I can put them on Instagram and they get 800 views each. So it's 4,000 views. That's 4,000 views. And like embracing every view and every viewer and the time they listen, regardless of what it was, regardless if it's old content you moved again or whatever. It's like, I think that's the move, because that's hoping that your next one goes crazy or grows isn't is
Not a
like I've
strategy.
seen too many people not go anywhere. Like just they're consistent and they do it over and over. It doesn't go anywhere. So a lot of times, most of the time, it's not that simple. It's not like, hey, make a video 3 times a day. Make sure you have a call to action. Da 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 da. Do it for a year and a half, and it's going to work. No, a year and a half from now, you may be getting 8 views. I know YouTube channels that did well produced stuff consistently, and they have under 100 views. It's wild, but like it is not just consistency. So or any formula.
No, you're so right. It's everything with that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, good statement. You probably have a better question. Mine was back to what you originally said. How do you get the eyes on it? I'm not a marketer. I'm in sales. I do understand some of this stuff. I've watched the Jesse, and hey, I could sit and buy all the croissants and make people come by me. And, I feel that. I think back to your point, I've mercilessly, one of those words with merce in it, worked to be consistent, to do daily, blending of my coffee, to have, the personal brand be what it is. I've participated in a lot of young artists, which has caused me to grow in certain places. I have all that. I see the eyes, I see the metrics. It's been a lot. I'm trying to think where I'm going here. I think that I'm watching when what you're saying to me is just keep going. Like it's that meme. I think we've talked about this before, where it's the guy, digging the hole and he stops right before. And I think we have some good stuff. It's been slow. We've had some bumps. And I think we haven't had the opportunity to do the consistency part that you're describing. And so I think we're going to kind of double down on that and, hopefully see people other than my relatives and Ronnie's relatives and now your relatives look at it. But in some cases, my relatives have, started walking because of it. So I put that in the win category. So anything, hey, you were prepped for as you had like 2 weeks. This was on a calendar for 2 weeks. Anything that you were like, man, I hope he doesn't ask me this, or hey, I hope he asks me this. Is there any of the like life hacks that you wanted to talk about, like sleep with a newborn, any of those kind of things?
No, I mean, sleep with a newborn. We got kind of lucky. He sleeps pretty well. He's in his own room, and for the most part, one of us gets up one time a night, but that's not the end of the world. I don't know. I think like at the core of everything, it's like, don't hold back. Like, don't, like even just kind of like pulling off of what we were just talking about, the clips. It's like, just because you may not have time to do clips every day, just because it might not be something you're good at or whatever, if you find yourself with some time and inspired, try and find the best clip of a video and clip it and post it. And who cares? And even if you don't do it again for 2 weeks, that doesn't mean 2 weeks from now you're not going to do it because you haven't done it for 2 weeks. Like, and it's just like there's kind of these like psychological holdbacks, I think, for myself. Like, I was adjusting something on our website last night, for example, and it's like these margins, like there's certain margins, like they drive me bananas over time because little margins will change on screen size or whatever. And you're like, right, okay, this no longer like looks perfect. We have to fix this. And chasing margins is a pain in the ass. And sometimes you can't even figure out how to move the damn thing, whether it's padding or margin, and other things are pushing it. And what I'm saying is like, it's something that had been annoying me for like a year plus. And then, you dig in there and you start playing with it. And 30 minutes later, you're kind of a pro at it. And you're like, all right, this is easy, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, just in general, not holding back. There are no rules to anything. Do things the way you want them. You could have no set, like, for example, podcasting, like I have this black curtain behind me that like I had a green screen, I had a black curtain, I test lighting, I do all these things like, Ronnie's on a sofa, you're walking, like you can do a podcast from anywhere. And like an example of that would be, if you happen to know Matan Evans, he's a 17-year-old Matan Evans. He's a comedy YouTuber. He actually like snuck up on like an award stage for like a gaming award in like 2022, which some people know him. And anyway, his podcast is, he kind of does like an accent and it's a joke, but like he pulls in guests that like are pretty famous and like asks them everything. It's wild. But the point being is he sets up a white sheet around like him, a white big sheet. He sets it up in their studio. He puts the fold-out table with like the metal chair and a microphone, and that is his studio. And like he goes to them, sets up a white sheet and puts fold out, and it's hilarious and it's awesome. And what I'm saying is there's no right or wrong. There's no budget. There's no like limiting you from doing anything. There's no like, oh, you need to be this big. You don't need a physical art. Like there's no anything. So we're in a world where you can just like do whatever you want. And the point being is do. Because like if it lives in your head, you will have regrets. But if you like do whatever you want, like try to do it and just like go for it, and don't not do it because you quit, or don't not do it because it's been a while, or don't not do it for any reason. I think like, you know, I think that's how you get a lot of fulfillment out of things like life, you know.
Wise words. Thank you. Don't hold back. Go forward and reach for that next ring. And worst case, in the tough mudder, I fell in the water and I had to start over. But you know, you want to keep going forward.
And if you want to be one of those people who like wake up at 5:30 in the morning, do 100 push-ups and read a book and a journal, like mazel tov to you. And like that's a path for people. But like that's also not the path. Like I don't want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. The last thing I want to do is read at 5:30 in the morning. The last thing I want to do is write ever. I hate writing with a pen and paper. But like that is what absolutely works for people. So it's like, do what works for you. There are no rules in this world. You know, the rules are only there to probably make you, you know, either help you or potentially make you feel like shit. Who knows? You know?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's the my experience in the, you know, taking the mushrooms and all that kind of stuff is, man, they have lied like so much to us, and it's like I just want to understand. Well, why is it? Like, why did we get the food pyramid upside down? Why did they do this stupid shit? Why do we think that Star Wars is better than Star Trek? I mean, that last part was a joke. You know, that was,
Well,
last joke.
One more thing out there is like, yeah, in the current life, it's easy to say, like current times, it's easy to say, or not easy to say, but like, you know, you might say like, man, they're lying to us, right? Like that could be something people say is like, they're lying to us. And like, what I kind of feel like is, of course, people are lying, like at all levels, like that's just what it is. But the reality is, I don't think people that we think are people in power and people of prestige and so on, I don't think they know what the fuck they're doing. I don't think they're like smart people. I don't think they like have a clue. So like, I don't even give them enough benefit to say they're lying to us. I don't even think they know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't even think they're smart enough to lie to us in a sense, in a grand sense. So what I'm saying is like, you know, you should go with what's inside you and the people you care around you, because like they very well may know more than the people you think know anything.
I appreciate you. Any last parting words, Ronnie?
No, besides thank you. Like he said, your platinum status, we're trying to keep up with you, and just keep riding, man. I appreciate everything that you're doing for everyone, and it's cool to see. Keep going.
Thank you.
Grateful for you, Eric. Thank you.
I got to give a shout out to Patrick Fransko, because I feel like he was the common thread between us all. So love you, Pat.
Indeed.
My brother. No, he is. I'll stroke his ego. He is a one of zero. You feel like you're getting worked over for a pair of sunglasses, and then you're getting 75 pairs of pants in the mail. So I don't know if you win in that circumstance, but that's Patrick Fransko. So appreciate him bringing all of us together. Yeah, love you, buddy.
Yes, indeed.
We appreciate you. I'm going to sign off.